Hello and welcome back to our podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by North Face. As you guys know, the winter's coming, so go on and head down there and get your winter apparel now. So today we're basically talking about the books that we all read, so Sam sure is going to start us off.
Alright, so the book I read was A Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This book was written in free verse poetry, and as for a summary, the main character is Will, and his brother Sean was shot and killed yesterday. And then Will says that in his neighborhood, one of the rules after a death in the family is to find the killer and kill him as revenge. So Will plans to follow the rules and kill this guy named Carlson Riggs, the man he believed killed Sean. And Will believes that doing this is the only way he'll be able to express his love and loyalty to his brother. He also believes that killing Riggs will take the pain away. On the elevator ride down to Riggs' apartment, the ghosts of dead relatives and dead friends persuade Will not to kill Riggs. For example, the ghost of Will's father makes Will rethink his choices by telling a story about when he had pulled the trigger on the wrong person. The book ends with 2 words from the ghost of Sean, his brother, and these 2 words were, "You coming."
And so when you say those last 2 words were "you coming," what does that mean by that?
His dead brother Sean was asking Will, are you coming, with the dead, because after you shoot someone, then, someone's probably going to shoot you, and then...
Oh, so he was, kind of asking, are you coming? You're going to be next? Okay, I got you.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
And now time for Peter's summary.
All right, so the book I read was called Relentless by Tim S. Grover, and this was more of a motivational book, and it was about how to become good to great to unstoppable. And in this book, he really just talks about, or the first couple of pages is him defining 3 different types of people: a cooler, a closer, and a cleaner. And basically a cooler is someone who's more laid back and is careful and wait to be told what to do and is more of a follower. A closer is someone who can handle a lot of pressure and get the job done. And if you get them in the right situation and tell them what to do, they can do it. And then the cleaner is someone who's never satisfied. It means you go somewhere and you leave with results, you make things happen. Yeah, and so the thing about Tim S. Grover is that he's an NBA trainer who has a facility in Chicago, and he's trained multiple NBA legends such as Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, and the book is mainly written from his perspective, and it's just talking to the audience and telling them how you can be better and what you can do.
What had caught your attention most while reading this book?
All right, so what I really liked about this book is that no matter what, he just kept talking about how you can be better and that how there can be a better version of yourself. Each different chapter is based off of a different thing you can do. An example is you keep pushing yourself harder when everyone else has enough. And then another thing is you'd rather be feared than liked, which I really liked because people respect you more. And another thing is you have to have a dark side that refuses to be taught to be good, so you can tap into that dark side when the moment comes. All right, and so now Jack is going to talk about his book.
Okay, my name's Jack, and I read And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. The main character of the book is Vera Claythorne. The book is about a group of strangers that are all invited to a mansion in Indian Island. Each character is invited for a various amount of reasons. After the guests are done eating, a young character named Tony Marston dies from his whiskey being poisoned. All of the guests come to the conclusion that one of the guests killed Tony. Something that I liked most while reading this book was that all of the strangers came together to find who killed Tony Marston.
So, exactly why were some of the people invited to the island?
Something that all of the guests that were invited to the island had in common were they all killed someone, but they were not punished for their past crimes. And they were invited all by someone that they really didn't know for various reasons, such as Vera Claythorne was invited to the island to be a secretary. Philip Lombard was hired as an adventurer, and William Bourne was hired by the people to look out for trouble over the weekend.
All right, so you talked about the Philip Lombard and then the William Bourne and Vera Claythorne. Were those three people the only ones invited to the island, or were there more?
No, there were more people. There were exactly 8 people invited, but there were already 2 people on the island, which were served as maids and butlers.
And so they were already on the island because they were, like, helping the people that live there, or?
Yeah, they were helping the people live there.
Okay.
Now Shamsher will be talking about the main characters of his book.
All right, so I'm going to talk about Will, who was the main character of my book. He's obviously a troubled child because he lost his dad, his best friend, his Uncle Mark, and his brother, who were all shot and killed. Will is obedient, though, because, for example, he follows the code of conduct in his hood about the death of a family member. This code of conduct contains of 3 rules. Number 1, no crying. Number 2, no snitching. And number 3, always seek revenge. Towards the second half of the book, when Will is on the elevator with the ghosts, his sensitive side is revealed as he breaks down into tears, hearing the stories of his dead relatives and his friends.
Wait, and so how old is Will in the story?
Will is 15.
All right, and Sean?
Sean is like 19 or 20.
And did he get shot when Will was a kid, or?
No. He got shot when Will was 15. Like, the day after he gets shot, that's when Will seeks his revenge.
Okay. That makes sense.
Now we're going to talk about the characters in Peter's book.
All right, and so for my book, there weren't really any characters. It was more of just Tim S. Grover talking to the audience. So I'd say the main character is really just Tim S. Grover, and he's the one that's telling the audience what to do and, like, how to become a better version of themselves. Because he doesn't really talk about any stories or any, like, people that are new that he introduces into the book. So, yeah. All right, and now Jack is going to talk about the characters of his book.
Okay, so the main character of And Then There Were None was Vera Claythorne. Vera Claythorne was invited to Indian Island, believing that she was hired to serve as a secretary to one of the people on the island named Mrs. Una Owen. Similar to the other characters, Vera has a very dark secret that she hides from many people and doesn't tell a lot of people. At her last job, she was a governor to a little rich boy named Cyril. She let Cyril drown so that his relative Hugo would inherit his money and then become rich enough to marry her. At inquest, cleared her of doing anything wrong. But Hugo, certain that Vera had let Cyril die, would have nothing more to do with her. Throughout the novel, Vera's guilty memories of her crime plague her. She often thinks of Hugo and feels as if he is watching her. And Then There Were None connects to today's events because it shows that some people can get away with their crimes without any repercussions. And now I'm going to be handing this phone to Shamsher.
Yeah, so for how my book connects to issues in today's world, this book is obviously about, like, the horrors of gun violence. Like, Will lost, like, a lot of his family members due to gun violence, and, like, it's kind of crazy to see how normal it is in Will's world. Like, for instance, on the elevator, all the characters were murdered by guns. So, Peter, you want to talk about the connections of your book to the world?
Yeah, so for my book, one of the, like, main things that I saw was how Tim S. Grover, like, when you read this book, you aren't really picturing him as, like, a black man or a white man. Like, he's just a trainer. And that's what he is to, like, so many NBA players, is, like, it doesn't matter what color his skin was or what ethnicity he was or what religion he was, but just the fact that he was great at his craft and has so many amazing quotes and, like, accolades behind his name is, I think, what really stands out.
And now time for a special guest who happened to come a little late. Here's Luca. He's going to tell us all about his book in depth.
Thank you, Samsher.
The title of the book I read was called Educated. This book is by Tara Westover. This book was narrated by Tara Westover in the first person. Tara Westover narrates the memoir retrospectively, looking back at events of her childhood and a young adulthood. This means that she told her story how it happened, but also reflected back on the experience from her point of view now. A short summary of this memoir would be how Tara Westover remembers overcoming her Mormon family in order to go to college. Her Mormon family had extremely religious ideals and values and beliefs about how women should just be traditionally, but Tara Westover overcomes this and decides to go to college, and at 17 she enters college but has no sort of formal education. Some of the important characters in this memoir are Gene Westover, Tara's father, who's a very religious man and is controlling. Faya Westover, Tara's mother, whose mother has 7 children and supports Tara sometimes, but mostly is loyal to her husband and her religion. Another important character is Sean Westover, who's Tara's brother, and he's completely manipulative and taunts and abuses Tara since they were little. And then the other important character is Tyler Westover, who's Tara's other brother, who was the first person to break away from the family and end up going to college. The theme of this memoir is obviously knowledge and how knowledge can be important and should be important, and it's shown throughout this book because, Tara's brother was the first to go to college, and then soon after, Tara herself was following in her brother's footsteps and went to college also. The theme also connects to today's world and relevance is because somewhere people might think college is irrelevant, but college is actually a really good place to go to obtain more knowledge and to further your career, and it's easier to get a job and apply that knowledge to your job that you will have.
All right, and so I think that's all the time we have for our podcast, so I'm going to hand it over to Jack, and he's going to end it off for us.
Okay, and that's going to be the conclusion of our podcast with me, Peter, and Sam Scher. Goodbye.